Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a great week. This week in Level E, we're going to be going over lessons 89 through 92. You'll need your practice sheets 7 and 8, the worksheets 62 through 64, the activities for learning abacus, your math card games book, and the percentage and fraction cards, which of course the percentage cards come in the fraction deck, but you've probably just been setting them aside because we haven't used them so far. So just pull those out as well. In lesson 89, we're going to learn the term percent, what it means, and then understand that it is actually a fraction of 100. There is a correction to this lesson. So if your book was printed before August 19th of 2016, please go ahead and check the link in the description. The warm-up is a multivide on practice sheet 7. After checking those answers, you'll move on to discuss percent. The word percent means out of 100 or per 100. So 50% means 50 out of 100. We can see this very easily using the abacus. There are 100 beads, so we can represent any percent by simply entering those beads, such as 50 beads for 50%. If we have half of the beads, we have 50% of them. Let's take a look at how to help your student figure out other fraction percent combinations, 2 different ways.
Okay, up to this point, your child has figured out 50% equals 1/2, 25% equals 1/4. Now we're going to look at 1/8. And you're going to ask, how could you find the percent for 1/8? We want your child to think about it. So give them time to think. They can look at the fraction chart. They can look at the abacus, anything that will help them to try to figure out what is 1/8. One way to think of it is that 1/8 is half of 1/4. So if 1/4 equals 25%, then 1/8 has to equal half of that, and half of 25 is 12.5%. Okay, so they should come up with 12.5%. Whether that's the way they did it or not, I don't know. Until your child does it, you won't know what they were thinking, but have them go ahead and explain how they got the answer. And as long as it's an efficient way, that's okay. I'll give you another example of a different way to do it. So let's say we wanted to figure out the percent that goes along with 1/3. So 1/3 equals what percent? One way you could think about it is that 1/3 of 90, so 1/3 of 90 is 30. And how much more do you have to get to 10? I mean, to 100, you need 10, right? So then the easiest way to figure that out is 1/3 of 9 is 3. And then you need one more to get to 100. So 1/3 of 1 is 1/3. You just add up all of these and you get 33 1/3%. So this takes a little bit of practice because you just need to know what's the most obvious multiple for the number to go into. So going back to the 1/8, we could use the same method. And we could say, okay, 1/8 of 80 equals 10. And then 1/8 of 20, because that's how much more you need to get to 100, is 2.5. So if you add those together, you get 12.5. So my answer is 12.5%.
Okay, so now your child can complete the worksheet, and it will be needed again for lesson 92, so hold on to it. Go ahead and ask the in conclusion questions and play Percentages Memory, which is game F46 in the Math Card Games book, and we do have a blog about it on the Right Start Math website. For lesson 90, we're going to be finding the percentage of a shade rectangle and learn how to estimate fractions and percents. The warm-up is a multivide on practice sheet 8. After that, draw 2 rectangles and have your child crosshatch half of one rectangle and 50% of the other. Remember that we did cover estimating fractions of rectangles in lesson 44. So if this for some reason seems a little difficult for your child, you could go back there and look at how we taught estimating how much to crosshatch. These exercises are to have your child become familiar with what percentages look like. So the percentage of something and how they compare to fractions. Notice how the exercises under finding the fraction compare with the first part of worksheet 63. Go ahead and ask the in conclusion questions and play percentage memory again. For lesson 91, we're going to be finding percentages of various numbers. After the second multivide on practice sheet 8, write numbers 1 through 10 and ask the discussion questions that will lead your student to be able to answer the worksheet questions. Let's take a look at some of those questions.
Okay, so the first question is, what percent of these numbers are even? Well, your child can see that every other one is even. So even equals 50%. Then it says, what percent of the first 5 numbers are even? So the first 5 numbers, there's only 2 that are even out of 5. So that's 40%. What percentage of the numbers are greater than 7? So there's 3 numbers that are greater than 7. So 3 out of 10 is 30%. What percentage of the numbers have a 1? So there's 1 with a 1 and another 1 with a 1. So 2 out of 10, which is 20%. And what percentage of the even numbers have a 1? So out of all 10 numbers, looking at all the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, none of those have a 1, only 10 does. So 1 out of 5, right? Because there's only 5 even numbers. So 1 out of 5 is 20%. Now let's go back up here to the 2/5. Maybe it wasn't obvious to your student right away that 2 out of 5 is 40%. If they don't get that, you could say, well, how much would this be out of 10? It would be 4 out of 10, right? So 4 out of 10 would be 40%, because if you continue that logic, 4 out of 10 is 40 out of 100. Okay, so just in case this one in particular is a bit of an issue, you can always look at it as how many out of 10. And in this case, it would be 4 out of 10. Okay, after the worksheet, play the game 100%, which is F50 in the Math Card Games book, and then ask the in conclusion questions. I have the game set up here just to give you an idea of how it is played. And it's played like any other normal memory game. So for example, if I turn over this card, that's 75%. What would make 100%? 25%, right? So let's see if I can find 25%. I did not. This is 30%. So I've just lost my turn. I got to put the cards back, and then the next person goes. So let's say that they do this card, 20%. What do they need to make 100%? Let's see if we can find it. They need 80%. Okay, they should say the answer, unlike I just did. They should say the answer before they turn over the card so that we know that they know what they're looking for.
Okay, so I hope that was helpful. For lesson 92, there is a correction. So if your book was printed before March 10th of 2017, please look at the link in the description. After the 2 oral warm-up questions, ask your child to enter 1/4 of the beads on the abacus. How many beads are entered? 25, right? How could you write this as a decimal? 0.25. What percent of the beads have you entered? 1/4, right? So now your child can use the calculator to see how the numbers appear if you press the percent sign instead of the equal sign. In the paragraph just above thirds and sixths in percents, it says because 5/10 is 1/2, then 1/8 is 12.5%. So for my kids, I needed to walk them through this step a little bit more than just what that sentence said. It made more sense to them to go from 1/4 to 1/8, not from 1/2 to 1/8. So if your children are having the same kind of disconnect, just to step back and go from 1/4. So in other words, 1/4 is 25%, and half of that is 1/8, which is 12.5%. So after you finish the thirds and sixths, you'll play percentage memory again, and then ask the in conclusion questions. That's all for this week, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.